Well, good morning, good afternoon, or whatever time it might be, wherever you're joining us from. We're excited to welcome you to the 2021 BGC Forum. Once again, we're doing this forum virtually for a couple of reasons. One that we're all familiar with, we're in a pandemic, and everyone probably has a little bit of virtual fatigue. But we're looking forward to a time when we can do some components of this in person. But this also gives us the opportunity to reach a much broader audience than we've traditionally reached with our forum. So if some of you are first-time attendees, we welcome you. And we have an exciting agenda today. It's been an exciting and challenging year for us, as it has for probably all of you. Today's schedule will have this introduction, a little bit of an overview of what's happening with BGC, an update. We will recognize our well-deserved award recipients for 2021, including the Lifetime Achievement Award. We'll recognize the new diplomats for 2021. We will open the floor to questions for us at BGC. So as you're listening, please be thinking about questions you might have. You'll have an opportunity, the rare opportunity to ask us live for things that might be on your mind. And at the end, we'll have a drawing for an annual fee waiver for somebody who's certified in the program. So please stick around for that. These are your board of directors. I'm this year's chair. Tom Grumbles will be the chair next year. We're losing some of our really great contributors this year, Donna Daganero, Libby Ford, and our public member, Eileen O'Neill, along with our past chair, Cindy Hanko. All of them have been terrific contributors. And as you can see, with losing that many folks, we're also replacing, and Alan Griggs, I should mention too, who came on to us for a shorter term to help us with our BAC integration. And with that large number of folks, we're going to have a big transition going into next year with a whole lot of new people. But before I introduce them, let me introduce the folks who started in 2021, the board members that were elected last year. That occurred after last year's forum, so they didn't get a proper introduction. We had 3 new board members join us last year. Kelly Fernandez. We count Kelly as international since she's comes to us from Canada. We're trying to expand our international reach. She works for she's an occupational hygienist for workplace safety and prevention services in Ontario, Canada, and she has really stepped up and taken leadership roles in particular working with us on our NAR committee applications. Bob Skoglund has joined us. He'll be taking on responsibility for our financial committee leading into next year, taking that over from Donna Daganero. And Paula Stephen is joined us, and she's really helping us with our strategic planning process. I should mention that Bob is the head of product safety and regulatory affairs for Covestro. And Paula is a CIH safety specialist, and she's a 17 years experience industrial hygienist, and she's working in the field today. She's an Army enterprise level industrial hygienist. You might notice I'm trying to read from notes here. So. But now our new board members who are just joining us, Phil Amaroth, I should say, joining us as our public member. Phil comes to us from capabilities, director of capabilities for Logisolve, an LOC management and technology consulting firm headquartered in Minnesota. I had the opportunity to interview Phil before he became our new public member, and he has tremendous breadth and experience working with some leading organizations that I think is going to really help us moving forward, and he will be a great replacement for Eileen, who's done a terrific job as our public member over the past couple of years. Joe Codier has joined us as a new director, particularly with a lot of experience with the credentials that came to us from BAC, the auditing credentials. He's the director of the Elm Consulting Group International, and brings a wealth of experience and will help us continue to integrate that valuable credential. Caitlin Prigge is the US and Canada Logistics Fabrications and Facilities EHS Manager and Systems Lead at 3M. It's always important for us to have folks who have an understanding of the corporate world, since so many of you are involved in that. And we're hoping that Caitlin will bring that experience and perspective to our board. We're very excited to have Ujwal Ridwick, who's a QEP, joining us. The QEP is a very important credential. We need to focus on building and growing that credential. He brings a lot of experience over the years, 35 years working with petrochemical refineries and oil and gas related industries. And he's currently the principal at the Center for Professional Excellence in Risk and Sustainability. But he has tremendous international experience, particularly in the Middle East. And last but not least, Don Weeks has joined us. Don has worked for 46 years, particularly in indoor air quality. He's based in Canada at this point, and again, brings us international experience and global experience, and a lot of board experience from his historic activities on many boards that will help us moving forward. None of the things that we could do could happen without our extraordinary staff at BGC, led by Ulrich Chung, who we'll be speaking to in a second, who's our Chief Executive Officer. But the full team, remember, we're focused on providing globally recognized and rigorous credentials. You can see behind Ulrich, two of our codes, but precise and rigorous, are really focusing on that. And those things can't happen without the team that includes Ron Drafta in examinations, Yvette, Pamela, Sherry, who's just joined us and has made a tremendous impact in her short tenure, Jody, Gary, Paul, and Elizabeth, all essential members and folks that many of you have probably talked to over the years and who have helped you with any questions you might have about your credentials and how to apply for them. And with that introduction, let me turn it over to Ulrich, who will provide an update on BGC's activities.
Sure, thanks, Alan. So a lot has happened in the past year. I'm sure a lot has happened to all of you. I'm going to summarize some of the things that have happened since the last forum. So we're going to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 that's still going on, unfortunately. We're going to give you an update on our credentials and talk about some initiatives that we started in 2020. So retirement status, badging, and about our internal reorganization. And then I'll say a few words about strategic planning for BGC as we go forward. So as I said, COVID-19 is still on the books, and we'll still probably be dealing with it for years to come. But the BGC staff are all working on a regular schedule. So even though some of them are not necessarily working in the office, they are available to work with you, to talk about questions or answer any questions that you have and work through any problems that you have. So the full BGC staff member contingent is available. The QEP and EPI exams have been redeployed to new examination centers which have health and safety protocols. Unfortunately, last year we had to shut down the exams because they were offered in places which didn't have those protocols, and now we do. And as a result of COVID, we began to explore offering the CPPS exam, the product stewardship exam, through remote proctoring. And we're now working to offer the environmental credentials and the auditing credentials through remote proctoring, hopefully sometime in 2022. Remote proctoring is a word which might not resonate with a lot of you, but that in the credentialing word, that simply means that you can sit for your exam at home or from the comfort of your own home. And as BGC is growing as a global credential, your home could be anywhere around the world. So we have currently about 8,000, or actually we have 8,231 practitioners globally, and that spans all of our credentialing programs. Outside of the majority of our credentialed practitioners are in North America, so the US and Canada. However, we have the next largest contingent in Asia. So that is mainland China, Taiwan, People's Republic of China, and Singapore. And that number is growing. So the CIH is our flagship credential. And so we expect that to be the case for many years to come. But this year we did something special. We updated our credentialing exams. So we update our credentialing exams every 5 to 7 years. So we finished that, or we're in the last stages of that process right now. And we expect to have the new CIH examination running for the spring 2022 exam window. The environmental credentials, the EPI and QEP, were the first ones that were adopted and brought into the BGC family. So those include the environmental professional in training designation and the qualified environmental professional credential, which has 4 specialty areas: air quality, water quality, waste management, environmental science management, and policy. So right now we are going through an exam update, and so hopefully we'll have that done in the next few weeks, or at least the major part of the update in the next few weeks. And then we'll redeploy the exam similar to what we do with all of our credentials every 5 to 7 years. The EHS auditing credentials, so that includes the Certified Process Safety Auditor, CPSA, and the Certified Environmental Auditor, CPEA, which has, again, 4 specialty areas: environmental compliance, health and safety, management systems, and responsible care. That was brought on in about, I think, June 1st of 2020. So we were able to recertify people who had the credential, but we weren't taking on new applications because we had to redeploy the exam through new exam vendors. So that exam is now available for anybody who wants to apply for the credential. So, and we're very happy to hear that. And we are also planning to update these exams hopefully by the end of this year, maybe early in 2022. The product stewardship examination actually started on September 1st of 2020. Even though we've been talking about developing that credential for a long time, the first people began sitting for the exams September of last year. Because of COVID, we began offering this through, as I said, remote proctoring. So people actually have taken the exam from home very successfully. And right now we have 43 practitioners, and that number is growing. So we're very happy to hear that as a new credentialing program, this is doing quite well. Retirement status was something that we started in 2020 as well. And that was designed as a special designation. It's not a credential, but it's a designation for people who are at their end of their careers, to really acknowledge their contributions towards the protection of the public and the environment. The designation allows for ongoing engagement with their colleagues, their peers in the professional community. And surprisingly enough, we found out after looking at our statistics that retirement status is preferred 2-to-1 over voluntary surrender. So people who are coming to us to give up their credentials are choosing choosing retirement status at twice the rate as they are over voluntary surrender. Now, membership has its privileges, and retirement status is no exception. So when you go into retirement status, you do get some benefits that you don't get over voluntary surrender. So for example, although you can't be on the BGC board, you can be eligible to work on BGC committees. You get a listing in the public roster if you want it. You have a full listing in the private roster. You can receive BGC newsletters. You can be a BGC ambassador, and you can write a reference for people who are applying for any of the credentials. In addition, if you decide to go back and you actually want to reactivate your credential, we give a waiver of your fees. So, for example, if you have an annual membership or if you're on an annual retirement status, about $35 a year, you get a discount of $150 just to reinstate or become fully active again. Retirement status also offers something which we call badging, which we introduced this year. So a retirement badge looks something like this. And actually, my staff members who probably were born in the age of the cell phone didn't have a clue what the symbol was. They thought it was a magnifying glass. It actually is a pocket watch, which used to symbolize retirement. But anyway, that's the symbol that we're using for retirement. And any of our badges can be used in your email. You can put them in your email, on your websites, in your LinkedIn profiles, or in any of your social media profiles. But I think the biggest benefit of badging comes from those people who are actually actively credentials who have active certifications right now. So they let you promote yourself and market yourself. They also, for us, which is a very important thing, they confirm your status as a BGC credential practitioner. So it's almost like you're having your paper certificate and you can carry it around anywhere you go. Anybody can see it, doesn't get wrinkled, doesn't get dirty, doesn't get wet if it rains. So you have the ability to demonstrate that you are a BGC credential practitioner just by posting your badge on your email, on your website, wherever. It also helps to promote the profession. And if you're looking for new positions, it connects you to real-time job postings to 25,000 job sites. And so the BGC badging program is offered at no additional cost. We do that as a regular service of being a BGC diplomate or certificate. We do have 3 flavors of badges right now. So if you are on your way to becoming credentialed, we have your in-training badge. That is only applicable for the EPI, Environmental Professional and Training, but the other credentials, CIH, QEP, CPEA, CPSA, and CPPS, they all have active badges. And if you choose to retire after service in good standing, you can also get your retirement badge as well. Okay. So many changes have taken place at the organizations. Many of them have been visible, but there also have been some invisible changes taking place at the organization. So some of those changes have to do with restructuring the organization. So in 2014, when I arrived, we had 2 credentials, the CIH and the CAIH, and we had, and our staff were focused on applications, certification, maintenance, or recertification, and the exam. When we brought on the environmental credentials, we kept a similar structure where we had dedicated staff only working with the QEP and EPI credentials and designations. When we brought on the product stewardship credential, the CPPS, which is new, we brought that under the staffing who were currently working with the CIH and the CAIH. And then we had a new umbrella name which covered all of those entities, and so ABIH and IPEP no longer really exist as legal entities. They're both under the Board for Global EHS Credentialing. After we went to our new branding and organizational structure, we added the EHS auditing credentials. And as I mentioned before, we didn't offer the credential for new applicants right away because we were trying to build up the program and build up the infrastructure for managing it. But the future of our program is going to look a little bit different than that. So actually now, not just the future, all of the applications are being handled by one set of staff. So all credentials, CIH, CPPS, CPEA, QEP, EPI, CPSA, are all being handled by one group of staff. Another group of staff handles recertification for all the credentials. And you notice that the CAIH, which is actually an active credential right now, but we're not offering the exam anymore, is covered by those recertification staff members. The examination area has not been fully integrated yet, but our plan will be, again, to have all of the exams run by the same staff members. So this is the future of the organizational structure of the BGC. However, applications and recertification are currently under the new structure. We're also involved in a website migration. Now, many of you may have noticed who've looked at our different sites. So we have 3 sites, actually. We've got the ABIH site, we've got the environmental site for what used to be IPEP, and we have the new BGC site. And so where do you go for information? Because some of the information is kind of scattered across, and we know that some of you are having difficulty finding what you need. The goal is to get rid of the ABIH and the old IPEP site and have one site, which would be the BGC site, which will have all the information for all the credentials, but it's going to be broken down into a different kind of structure where we'll have an area for practitioners, an area for applicants, and an area for the public. And so we have different areas because if you're a practitioner, you don't need to see the information for applicants all the time. You just want to focus on your needs as a practitioner. But if you want to get a new credential, you can always go to the applicant site to get more information. The public site will have information that's targeted for people who don't know what we do as practitioners, but the information is geared to a level where we help them understand the kinds of roles and things that we have. And we'll have things like videos and not special, but we'll have information is designed for people who don't specifically know what we do. So, for example, within the past couple of months, we had some of our CIHs, Kelly Fernandez, who's on our board, and Tim Paz, who's a former board member, were interviewed on RVN TV, and we have purchased the recording of that, so we'll be posting that to our websites to inform the public, but also other practitioners about what it is that our practitioners do. As I mentioned, we're going to be going through strategic planning. So a lot of changes taken place over the last few years. And the BGC board is taking time to reflect and strategically plan for the next 3 years. So I think that when you consider that we're going to be adding 5 new board members with fresh ideas, I can really guarantee you that we're going to continue to see interesting changes coming in the future for BGC. So that's really it for my update. So if you have any questions, please jot them down and we'll give you some time to ask those questions later in the forum. Thank you. So I'd like to turn this over to Donna Daganiero.
Okay. Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone. I am chair of the awards committee, and as the chair, I would like to present to you an overview of the current BGC awards. In 2014, BGC began recognizing CIHs and CAIHs with the AVIH Impact Award and just CIHs with the Lynn O'Donnell Lifetime Achievement Award. When CPEAs and CPSAs joined the BGC family of credentialed practitioners in 2020, we also began presenting the James C. Ball Lifetime Achievement Award, recognizing the contributions of EHS auditing professionals. And this year, we are very pleased to announce that we have brought back an award which has not been offered since 2017, that recognizes the important work of our environmental professionals, the Qualified Environmental Professional, or QEP Award. I would now like to introduce Libby Ford, who will present the 2021 QEP awardee.
Well, I'll introduce Georgie in a minute, but I'd first like to just talk a few minutes about this award, which, as Donna indicated, has not been presented since 2017. There are 6 areas of focus that somebody can be awarded within. Georgie actually got nominated and qualified for all 6 areas. And those areas include, the fact that he's has shown direct influence and impact on the scope of the environmental profession and society at large. He's provided a positive improvement for a significant segment of society. And he is the interim chair of the Geoscience, Physics, and Safety School at the University of Central Missouri. Has worked in this field for over 29 years across the span of locations. He's also been very active professionally outside of the academic arena, particularly chairing ANSI ASSP committees and the U.S. Technical Advisory Committee, TAG for ANSIs. Leading the TAG 262 Committee for Risk Management and Oversight. He recently developed the AIH business case, simplified methodology for environmental health and safety design and process decisions to document decisions on new projects. And so it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you all Dr. Georgie Popov.
Thank you, Libby. I really appreciate the opportunity to thank all of you, and I'm honored to receive the QEP award. I was so happy to see that environmental credentials were incorporated now under the Board of Global Credentialing. That is something significant for our profession, and this award is not about me, it's about our profession. Our profession has changed. Years ago, we had safety managers, we had industrial hygienists, we had environmental engineers. Now, most of the jobs are branded as EHS. And even if you look at the latest mission or American Industrial Hygiene Association Enterprise Strategic Plan for next year, 2022 to 2024, you will notice that the mission has changed, and now it states that AHA is empowering and advancing those who apply scientific knowledge to protect all workers in their communities from occupational and environmental hazards. So having said that, I mentioned earlier, I was so happy to see that the environmental credentials were incorporated under the Board of Global Credentialing. So once again, thank you all for the award, and I'm honored to receive the award.
Okay, oops. Okay, congratulations, Georgie. I would now like to introduce Alan Griggs, who will present the James C. Ball Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you, Donna. Greetings, everyone. It's an honor to be here. As Donna mentioned earlier, the James C. Ball Lifetime Achievement Award is made to a current or former certified professional EHS auditor or certified process safety auditor in recognition of their significant contributions to the profession of EHS auditing throughout their career, and in particular with a focus on certification. The award honors Jim Ball, who was an advocate for certification in our profession. He was a leader in our membership organization, and he was a tireless volunteer for BAC when it was originally founded in 1997 and is now part of the BGC credential family. We conferred this award the first time in 2013 posthumously to Jim Ball. This is the 9th consecutive year that it's been awarded, and the 2021 recipient is Julie Thompson. Like Jim, Julie has been a tireless supporter of our profession for many years and also supported our certifications. She served on the original board of directors for BAC. She served again in 2007, 2008 when she was serving concurrently with Jim Ball. She was a leader at the Auditing Roundtable, which was our profession's membership organization at the time. And more recently, she has taken the initiative to fill the gap created by the loss of that organization. Last year, in the midst of a pandemic that set a lot of organizations on their heels, she founded the Auditing Alliance, a membership organization that provides continuing education, networking, and resources for EHS auditors. And although this is about Julie, I don't think she would object to a plug. If you're interested in our profession and you haven't already, I encourage you to spend a few minutes learning more at auditingalliance.org. And now it's my distinct privilege to introduce Julie Thompson.
Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond our control, Julie wasn't able to attend. So I'm going to accept the award on her behalf. So thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll now move on to our next award, which is the ABIH Impact Award. This award recognizes the contributions of BGC certified industrial hygienists or certified associate industrial hygienists who hold a credential for less than 20 years. Recipients must have made significant contributions to the practice of occupational and environmental hygiene as demonstrated through a project, a series of projects, or an initiative that was completed or ongoing in the last 5 years. Examples include development of new technologies, advancement in the science of occupational and environmental hygiene, and volunteer pro bono service or committee work that contributed significantly to the field. It's with great honor and pleasure that I want to introduce this year's recipient, who is Dr. Linda Martin. Linda is a CIH, CSP, and a CHMM. Her years of work and contributions demonstrate a significant positive impact on the profession of occupational and environmental hygiene. Also, Dr. Martin's volunteer spirit and service to the professional community, mentoring, and body of work have contributed to this field and its longevity. Dr. Martin has over 30 years of experience in occupational safety management, construction safety, industrial hygiene, toxicology, epidemiology, environmental consulting, remote online instruction, and online curriculum development. She currently teaches, advises, develops curriculum, and serves as a dissertation chair in academia, where she also serves on editorial review boards for 7 academic peer-reviewed journals, including Safety Science and Journal of Safety Research. Dr. Martin served as a lead editor of the 11th edition of the National Safety Council's Supervisor's Safety Manual. She has been presented with awards such as the Faculty Service and Distinguished Teaching Award, the 2018 National Safety Council Marion Martin Award, and was chosen to serve as a moderator for the National Safety Council's Campbell Symposium Research Event and the National Safety Council's Work to Zero Conference in 2021. She also, which I found very interesting, hosts a podcast called The Safety Struggle, which contributes to the overall awareness of significant safety issues across all spectrums. I would now like to turn the forum over to Dr. Martin. Congratulations.
Thank you, Donna. Good morning and good afternoon to everybody. I am super honored to receive the Impact Award. And I just want to say nobody gets where they are alone. And so I want to give a big shout out to somebody who I hope is on the call, Dr. Sherry Marcham, who a while back told me that I could do anything that I wanted to do, including get my doctorate. And so thank you to Sherry for serving as a positive mentor in the IH field and in the safety profession in general. And like I said, without the support of my students and all of the other people in the profession, I wouldn't be where I am. And so I encourage everybody that's here on the call and everybody that listens later to serve as somebody who can bring something new into the body of knowledge or bring something new into the profession to make it better. And so, Donna, thank you for the introduction. I'm sorry it was so long. I hope that I have another at least 15 years in me to go, and hopefully can continue to make the impact greater. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for this honor.
Okay. And now for our final award, which is named after Lynn C. O'Donnell, our former executive director of ABIH, now BGC, and that is the Lifetime Achievement Award. The Lifetime Achievement Award is the highest honor awarded by the Board of Global EHS Credentialing to a certified industrial hygienist for exemplary contributions to the practice of occupational and environmental hygiene that has culminated over a lifetime of work. This award is intended to honor CIHs who have contributed a legacy of service to the profession demonstrated by exemplary leadership accomplishments, exemplary technical accomplishments, mentoring of early and mid-career industrial hygiene professionals, and exemplary professional service to the local community, the nation, or the world. I would now like to turn this over to Lynn O'Donnell, who will present the award to this year's recipient.
Thank you, Donna. I'm really so pleased to be able to introduce Chris Lasses Davis as the award winner Chris and I have been colleagues and friends for more years than the two of us want to admit. But just some background on Chris. She has more than 35 years of executive management, professional, technical, and consulting experience in environmental affairs, occupational health and safety, operational integrity, risk management, and product stewardship globally in government, industry, and now consulting practice. She's currently serving as co-chair of OHTA, the Occupational Hygiene Training Association, and was instrumental in establishing the Stephen C. Davis Memorial Grant Award to the Future Leader Institute within the American Industrial Hygiene Foundation. She has served as a director in most of the industrial hygiene organizations that you're probably familiar with, including what was then ABIH, now BGC, ACGIH, AIHA, and she was president of the American Academy of Industrial Hygiene. She's really recognized internationally for her occupational and environmental expertise. She lectures, speaks frequently on emerging issues in leadership, has chaired and presented at numerous OEHS conferences in the United States and globally, and has co-authored and/or edited numerous articles and book chapters. She's received the 2021 AIHA Distinguished Service Award, 2014 AIHA Yuma Pacific Southwest Section Clayton Award, 2011 AIHA Alice Hamilton Award, 2008 AIHA Northern California Section Dr. Christine Einert Award, and the 1989 AIHA Kuznets Award. And without further ado, Chris, congratulations. So glad we're here.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. You know, as you were talking, Lynn, I got to thinking when we all rolled into the profession many years ago, you and I may have been two of about 4 or 5 women in the profession, and it's heartwarming to see so many today. I'd like to thank you for this award. I'm truly honored to receive it, and it's an even greater honor to be placed in such distinguished ranks as those of the past honorees, most who have been colleagues and personal friends for many years. So I feel blessed and I'm grateful. Now, when Alan Leibowitz called me up to tell me I was going to be granted this award, I said, that's wonderful. And then he followed it up with, but you have to put together a PowerPoint presentation. And I thought, oh, great, I got to work for this thing now too. So I thought a bit, struggled a bit with what I wanted to share with you. And I know what will get played in the next 20 to 25 minutes is something that is not your typical traditional professional presentation, but I certainly hope you enjoy it. You know, I considered what I would share with you all, given this esteemed honor. I thought about, you know, crafting the next 100 years in our profession, my vision for the future, and I finally decided I would just share a little bit about my trajectory, growing up, going through school, and landing in this profession that has ended up being a gift in so many ways. So let me walk you through the elements that I think I will share with you. I'll share a few thoughts about my personal background, my education, my career, during which I'd have to say I often challenge the norm. We'll talk a little bit about creating life balance with unexpected twists, and then continued evolution and growth. Let me share a little bit about my personal background. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I'm bilingual, actually born and raised, my early years, in fact, in England, but in a Polish community. We came over to the United States on the QE1, crossing the Atlantic in November. To this day, I can't go in the ocean without a wetsuit. But at any rate, my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio, is an industry town. Grew up in a blue-collar background neighborhood, but with a family that valued education. In fact, my dad was in medical school when the war broke out, and he, like many other immigrants, had their visions and their wishes and their dreams taken care of. So they made sure that their children had the education that they needed. Now, these two pictures may look like something out of the turn of the century, but I am here to tell you that when I grew up in Cleveland in the early days, the picture on the left is actually a picture of Republic Steel, and those were the conditions under which they were run at the time. And if you look at the picture on the right, that's the Cuyahoga River burning. I know it's often a joke in Cleveland that the river burned, but the truth is it did. And I can remember in college in the summers going to the flats dancing, and you could see the river burning. So Cleveland had its share of industry issues. And actually, it was one of the formative reasons for why I think I moved into the profession earlier on, or at least considered something like this. Education, my first major detour. Truth is, I was actually accepted to medical school when I got out of college, but it was about the time of EPA, NIOSH, OSHA, and the other federal agencies, and the universities under the NIOSH grants were recruiting students pretty aggressively from the schools. And I pivoted. I went to the University of Minnesota Graduate School of Public Health, got a number of offers. I think we all got many offers at that time. But for me, it was pivotal, and it was a very important turn and a very wise decision for me. As it turns out, the importance of that first detour, not only did I get my education as part of the NIOSH fellowship, but my advisor was Knowlton Kaplan, the father of the profession's ventilation engineering concepts. Now, Knowlton has passed many years ago, but at the University of Minnesota was known for having instructors who had operational experience as well. So they either worked in consulting firms or industry, but they also taught at the university. So our whole focus was very can-do in approach. The academic track was very broad-based, EH&S, even though the emphasis was industrial hygiene. But we all went through the program with a very broad environmental health and safety program as well. Value on integrated total life cycle approach. If I look at my career, and let me shift here, when we look at the career, I, like many, had many temporary jobs through high school and college. Oftentimes, they provided an opportunity for me to appreciate what I didn't want to do. My first trajectory out of graduate school was the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, stationed out of Washington, D.C., which eventually morphed to become the U.S. Department of Energy. I eventually moved over to industry, Kaiser Aluminum Chemical Corporation, and eventually to management consulting. My first job out of graduate school, as I'd shared earlier, was the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, and those were exciting times. The USAEC and the Department of Energy had interests in many fields: military, nuclear, oil and shale fields research, lasers, renewable energy, and biomedical research. It was broad-based and it was exciting. Now, why was that first job important? For my career, it was. Well, my home base was Washington, D.C. That was about the time that NIOSH, OSHA, EPA all launched in a very aggressive manner. They were very exciting times. The unions were strong. I happened to be the first EH&S headquarters management intern for the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. But with that, even though I was stationed in D.C., I spent a year and a half on the road, working and living at its different operations. The head of our agency at the time was Dixie Lee Ray. She was not only a PhD scientist, but in a heavily dominated male environment, she was well regarded and well respected. I would see her all the time.
when in Washington, D.C. She wore a safari-like outfit with knee highs, and she lived with her 2 dogs in a trailer behind the building. She was a woman with a sense of herself and knew exactly what needed to be done and when. I remember, well, I didn't spend my whole time with Dixie Lee Ray by any stretch when I was in Washington, D.C. One of the things that did impress me early on, I remember looking on her desk at one point. She had all these stamps on her desk, and I flipped one over and it said bullshit. And I said, I'm amazed to see this in a professional environment. She said, you know what? She said, there are reports that come in occasionally with it when that's about all you can share. And she said, it's important to be forthright. That was impressive to me. In fact, what was a wonderful experience at the time was the fact that even though I was stationed out of Washington, D.C., I did spend time at our nuclear reactor facilities, the Nevada test site, Hanford, Los Alamos, and Lawrence Livermore Labs. So, I mean, got a very broad-based education because the intent over time was to move me out to a regional job. I eventually became the regional IH medical manager out west. Why out west? Because I'd never really been west of the Mississippi, and I figured it'd be a great experience, never thinking that what I anticipated as a 2 to 3 year journey ended up being close to 40. Now, why was this Department of Energy experience important? It was government at its very robust self in the 70s and the early 80s. Lots of money for research. It provided me a window, if you will, into the political, governmental, legislative arena. And I know many people are not aware of the fact that, you know, as we look at risk assessments and management today, a lot of the pioneering work is really rooted in the military and the nuclear industry. So we were exposed to that very early on. The DOE very much valued a multidisciplinary integration approach, an important learning very early on for me. But what I found was, as I moved through my regional manager role, which was a very heady experience, quite frankly, for a 25, 26-year-old, I began to realize that while I was making a lot of money and moving up the ranks very quickly, I didn't have enough blocking and tackling experience. And I didn't want to continue to make multi-million-dollar decisions without more rooting in what I call groundwork. And so I moved over to one of its GOCO facilities, Lawrence Livermore Labs, for about 3 years. And that was a capability growth decision on my part. After about 3 years, I decided it was time to move over to industry. I wanted a different experience. I wanted something that not only turned the corner for me, but would put me in touch with people and operations that differed greatly from the government. So I had an opportunity at that time to join Kaiser Aluminum Chemical Corporation and another big global company. And the thing that I was really taken with Kaiser was the fact that their mantra was one person makes a difference. And that really appealed to me. The other company, it's a well-known global company, whose name I won't present at this point. They're doing very well today. But I know at that time, at least when we were coming out of graduate school, the 3-piece suits, the staying on the desk, where your office was located was very critical. And I figured I wouldn't last there very long. I'd probably be fired within a year. So I chose Kaiser Aluminum and Chemical Corporation that promised lots of opportunity in operations and staff whenever I wanted to raise my hand. The operations were varied. They were global: mining, smelting, fabrication, chemicals, refractories, aluminum ag farm markets, so got into pesticides, global operations and huge complexes. Exciting. The importance of my industry experience was that it was not only domestic, it was global. I assumed over a period of 23 years, both senior staff and operational roles, much of it under pressure, huge growth. I didn't want to simply be a staff person that advised and walked away from a set of problems that were placed on the table. I wanted to be part of the solution, and that meant you had to move into operations for a while. I eventually became a corporate vice president for EHS, environmental waste sites, workers' comp, operational integrity, product stewardship, and got involved in the due diligence, acquisition, and divestiture teams. All great learnings, a lot of it under pressure. But I found, at least for me, I learn when I'm under pressure. I love the fact that we have broad stakeholders. I could be making a presentation at a company C-suite board meeting, or dealing with shareholders, or talking to the unions, or dealing with the community when we had issues at our facilities. And that was worth its weight in gold. And the other thing I really appreciated, it really kind of beckoned to my immigrant status, dealt with a number of global operations, varying cultures, varying regulations, and I felt very comfortable in that arena. And during my period in industry, honed a number of skills that I bring forward even today. I'd like to think I still have today when it came to management audits, reviews, strategic planning, operations, senior training, briefings, and presentations. My fourth detour, and this is one I've been involved in for, I'd say, about the last 15 years, is what I'll call management consulting. After I retired from Kaiser Aluminum Chemical Corporation, I was much too young to retire. Had an opportunity to go with another global corporation, but our kids were in high school. Steve had just launched his business, and it was not a good time to move. And so he suggested I hang up a shingle, and I remember saying, nobody's going to come. I'll get no calls. Well, I've been doing that for quite a few years now. The calls still continue. And the kind of work I do for clients is much the same kind of work I did for industry and even government. So I have a broad base to work from, and that's been incredibly valuable. Now, during this whole period, you know, we all spend a lot of time in the quote unquote in the office, but the importance of professional engagement, I can't overstress at all. During this period of time, and it's a community networking capability that I think is important to your career and your personal growth. During this time, I was president of Northern California, the Union Pacific Southwest section, California's Industrial Hygiene Council, which is a consortium of IH communities in California. Have had the dubious distinction of having served on every national IH-OH board, ABIH, AIHA, the Foundation, ACGIH, and I was even president of the American Academy. And the truth is, I loved every one of those roles and put me in touch with a host of people, many of whom are still friends today. Not well known, but the PCIH, which was part of the American Academy and what it did each fall. When I was president, we had it and held it in Vancouver, British Columbia, so we did cross borders. But it was the profession's first risk assessment conference, and I'm happy to report that whole area of endeavor, risk assessment, has been refined and it's become more sophisticated over the years. And again, during this whole time with family, working, and professional engagement, you know, we all do our smattering of conferences, publications, presentations, and webinars. Now, I want to say a few words about creating life balance. It's real easy when you're busy to forget about the importance of personal life. I mean, we all go in and out of that, but I can't stress enough that the richness of life comes with this balance, creating life balance. Family and community engagement. This gentleman up in the left-hand corner is Stephen Davis, my husband, and here he is as a brown belt in karate when he was in the Army. I actually met him at one of our conferences within the profession. So romance does blossom even within our profession. Pictures of Steve and I, pre-kids, when we got married, when our second child was delivered. This is Steve introducing Grant to Lauren. You can tell she's not quite sure about all that. Our kids were both athletes, so we had the pleasure of years of lacrosse, football, and national volleyball championships. And this is a picture of the five of us, the five at that point being my daughter's fiance who got introduced. Unexpected life twists. Steve died about 6 years ago. It happens to all of us at some point. It was not an easy trail. But like all of us, we end up having to pick up the pieces and move on. But the kids and I are very close as other friends. And so we've had a number of adventures that I value. Life continues to be fulfilling, but I think you make a choice for it to be that. This is my son who recently got married a lovely girl by the name of Janelle. My daughter and her husband live in Brisbane, Australia. They're on rotation with their respective companies. And I'm fortunate in saying I've got a wonderful grandchild, but with COVID, the last time I was able to hold him was when he was 6 weeks old. But anyways, life does continue, and I have a lot to be grateful for. But I think it's important to remember your personal life fulfillment is absolutely critical to even the strength of your professional life. So ended up doing a few more things on the side. The NIOSH Board of Scientific Counselors, Governor appointed a management rep to Cal OSHA Standards Board. I am very excited about being co-chair of the Occupational Hygiene Training Association. Its courses were originally developed for third world countries, have an incredible board, an advisory committee, and hundreds of volunteers that get involved with that effort. That in terms of training, the power of knowledge in not only third world countries, but even in our own country cannot be underestimated. I do some work with ASSP, and in the last 5 years have taken on a more affirmative mentoring role with professional members. In the community, I've always been involved in the community. I'm a big believer in community, the networking, AAUW STEM tech programs for young women. I'm a Rotarian, a member of the town association, and I facilitated tri-community a set of initiatives. In all of these community efforts, you'd be amazed at how much science that we've all been involved in you bring to the table. Citizens are very struck by the world, are very knowledgeable, and what we can impart to them in the way of some reasoned science doesn't hurt at all. Just a few things I'd like to share with you. This is part of my mentoring role, so bear with me. Just a couple of bullet points, maybe more than a couple. I have to say that you alone have authorship of your own destiny. You hold that pen in your hand. You need to design your own journey. Detours give your life texture. I always worry about formulaic approaches to life. Take on the hard things and open the windows of opportunity. Raise your hand often, get uncomfortable. Don't settle for default settings. You know, as I've said before, I think my greatest learnings occurred when I was uncomfortable. We don't like being there for very long, but I'll tell you what, constructive criticism, constructive opportunities don't come often, but when they do, it's worth jumping on that bandwagon. The matter of how to be is more important than how to do. Quality of character often defines great leaders. The character is most evident at our highs and lows. You need to know your limitations and strengths, but play to the strengths. Be wise about that. A few other bullets if I might share with you. No one wins a game of chess or the game of life by only moving forward. Sometimes you have to move sideways or even backwards and then move forward. Absolutely critical. We tell our kids this, and it's no different than as adults. Who we choose to be around matters immensely. The toughest times in your life show people's true colors. Begin each day with gratitude and grace. It feels good. If you have rules, do not negotiate on them. They're not rules then. Be reasonable and flexible, but not on your principles. Sometimes I see that gray area a bit too gray in the decision-making that I see. The best quality and rewarding work happens through strong relationships. Build the reliable networks in the profession, in the community, in your family. Believe it or not, I'm coming to the end here. Don't let friendship cloud professional decisions. Always be honest, even if it's bad news. Always give credit to others. Everyone will know. And I always find this amusing, and I think it's so true. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place. George Bernard Shaw and Leah Iacocca followed this up by saying you can have brilliant ideas, but if you can't get them across, your ideas won't get you anywhere. And over the years, what I've found is that while we all aspire to technical prowess, communication, the ability to communicate with all kinds of stakeholders, may be our most important challenge. With great power and influence comes great responsibility. Mentoring and applauding others' success is critical. You know, we spend years growing ourselves, successes, about our growth, our maturity, about our value to our organizations, our families, and our community. But there comes a time when our leadership role really revolves around how we're able to make others grow. And I think if there's a message that I leave at all is we have a tremendous opportunity to mentor others and, you know, take it. It's fun, it's joyful, and it brings great value to all the people that you deal with. So with that, I appreciate the time that you have shared with me, and I have to thank you again for this wonderful reward. There are many, many people in our profession who deserve an award like this, but I thank you for thinking of me in that process.
Well, Chris, thanks again for sharing your very insightful journey, your perspectives. I found your presentation both insightful and inspirational, and hopefully others are taking something else away from that, from your talk. Once again, congratulations, Chris, well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Donna.
Well, thank you, Donna, and thank you, Chris. I've been working with Chris a lot with OHTA, and I know that this award and that piece at least could have earned it, and all the other things that she does have made it even more valuable and appropriate for what she's accomplished. Typically at these forums, we take the opportunity to recognize the people who have passed the exams, become BGC certified during the year. We're not able to do that live and in person. We hope to be able to do that at some point in the near future. I know folks would like to get our recognition coins again that we gave out in a couple of the recent in-person recognition sessions. But since we can't acknowledge you all in that same way, we're now doing some other things to recognize folks who have achieved our certifications. Those of you who are on Facebook or LinkedIn or any of the other social media, we're really working on our social media chops and getting better about how we identify the people who've taken the time and the real effort, because none of these credentials are easy to earn. They show a commitment, they show a real willingness to take the time to show people that you are qualified to work in the various professions that we provide certifications for. And so acknowledgement is important. You may have noticed in your feeds on the various social media platforms, notices of different people who have achieved our recognition, achieved our certification, and we really do want to thank those folks. And when you do see that pop up, please make a comment, acknowledge their accomplishment, and let folks know that we appreciate the quality and value of certification so that more folks will join our ranks and get the recognition that they deserve. We also recognize those folks who join the retired credential. And again, we want to thank people, because rarely is that an individual who's only put in a few years. These are folks who have put in a career serving the public and the population that we are privileged to do. And I should mention that something I say quite often when I'm talking about our professions, because there's several amongst us. We are privileged to have the opportunity that when we do our jobs right, we make the world a better place for the people we serve. And a lifetime, a career spent doing that deserves recognition, and we appreciate folks who are both in that career and the folks who have decided to take retirement and continue to contribute to our professions. Another social media aspect of what we're doing, we've got a blog post that we have for folks to take a look at. If you haven't gone to the website recently, there's some interesting blogs out there. There'll be another one coming out in the very near future that answers some of the typical questions that we have. In fact, it is posted now on the website, just came out a few days ago, that really talks about the kind of questions that we get. If you do have questions, you should always feel free to contact the BGC staff. And if you post them online, the board members can respond. But it's important because if you have a question, it's likely someone else does. And by answering yours, we can serve the full community. So please take a look, go to the website and take a look at the blogs. And if you have comments, let us know what they may be. These are some of the typical questions that we ask, and these are the kind of things that will appear on the blog. This is the president's blog, the chair's blog. But one of the things that comes up quite frequently is, why don't we as BGC support particular areas in our examination processes? And I'll let Ulrich get into more detail about this, but the very specific, because folks have passion about statistics or some particular aspect of, I'll take the CIH since that's my credential, where folks have a particular passion about some, and forgive me, but some minutia about the thing that they do. I was very active in some of the international industrial hygiene, and it was always interesting to me that there wasn't more focus on those things that were regulatory in nature. But that's not as appropriate, because we are a credentialing organization that really broadly reflect the accepted practice. And there's a whole process that we go through to find out what appropriate practice is in developing the exam questions. Ulrich, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think as a credentialing body, we really do have a very limited role as far as lobbying or taking positions. So our positions really are that we develop an exam and we follow a very set group of procedures for creating those exams. And taking positions in general is something that we really can't do, because we have to make sure that our process and our examination maintains credibility. So there are many, many things that we would actually like to be able to support and verbally give credibility to, but we have to kind of treat all positions equally as a credentialing body, so we don't really support anything regardless of what it is.
Yeah, and that whole idea of advocacy is something that we hear about a lot, because there's a lot of passions out there in the world right now. I know it's not a surprise to anyone that there are very strong opinions on all sides of a number of technical debates, and I guarantee, and I will let you know that we on the board, we on staff do have opinions about those, but it's not appropriate for BGC as a credentialing organization to take positions on matters of social interest of the day. We need to be impartial arbiters of whether or not somebody is qualified to practice in the professions we certify for, as opposed to having an influence or active role in the political issues or the social issues that are going on around us.
So Alan, we have one question, and this is from Gavin. And the question is, who are the main competitors to BGC?
Well, I'd offer that there aren't any, but the reality is there are other folks who play in aspects of the field. You've seen that there are international bodies. We participate, I mentioned before, on the NAM. That's an international body of credentialing organizations. BGC is the largest of those industrial hygiene or occupational hygiene credentialing organizations, but we do support the idea that there are other markets, and particularly when people are in different global communities who have different regulatory requirements, they have different impacts that they face, that they may have different elements that they can support. In fact, many people hold our credentials and other credentials in the same general area, and we support that because they may serve different markets and different purposes. We are the leader in most of the areas that we participate in. In the environmental area, we have some different competitors who are involved and active, but they don't touch exactly the same things that we do. And what we encourage folks to do is look at the credentials, see if they support what they're trying to accomplish in their careers. And like we've talked about, I, for example, am a CIH and a CSP. We don't offer the CSP. That's a great credential that has its place in the market. But we don't consider them competitors. We consider them allies in promoting health and safety and environmental work for the communities that we serve. Ulrich, did you have something to add?
No, I think, you know, we have to look at BGC in a different light too, because at one time we were just industrial hygiene. And I think I agree that we really are the main organization globally for industrial hygiene credentialing. When you look at other credentialing bodies around the world, we actually are the largest. We have about 80% or so of credentialed practitioners in occupational health and safety, industrial hygiene, occupational health. We are the largest. Now, when you talk about other groups like environmental credentials, then there is more competition, and so I think it really depends on which credential we're talking about.
But in some cases, we bring on, and I think that's an interesting point, because one of the things we've done, and it is not, remember, we are a nonprofit, and some of the decisions we make are very much focused on needs in the marketplace. Most of our credentials are not profitable. Our CIH credential does generate some funds that allow us to operate, but some of the other credentials that we brought on are really there because we think that without them, the global health and safety community would suffer. We took on the auditing credentials because it was important. We believed it was important to move forward with that. The product stewardship credential that we've taken on, it was created for the same reason the Product Stewardship Society was created. There was a gap in the market and people weren't able to really identify their specific skill set without having these kinds of credentials available to them. So it is not, and there's a passion on the board, there's passion on the staff, that we're not trying to, the staff, the board is all volunteers, the staff are not, you know, they would say that they could probably make more money doing some other things, but they're passionate about serving the market that we serve, and that's making the world a better place through health, safety, environmental activities that really make a difference. And that's why our credentials are in place. And one of the things that we talk about on the board when we're looking at new credentials and when we're looking at taking on a credential is there a competitor in the marketplace who's doing a good job? And if we find that there is, we don't take on that credential. We're not interested in duplicating or serving a market that's already served. We're interested in making sure that we can provide a service that's not already available in the global community. True. One more thing that I did want to mention, it's at the bottom of the page here that's on the screen, is talking about how BGC is structured and folks want to be able to influence the credentialing process. And in this case, the question was, well, I'm a member, why don't I get to have a say? The answer is you're not a member. We don't have members. We have credential holders. The only members, if you will, and they're temporary members because they don't last beyond their service period, are the members of the board of directors. And typically that's a 4-year period, but in some cases now, if you become an officer, something might be a 5-year period. But you know, basically the credential holders have a lot of opportunity to influence the overall process of BGC by providing questions, by helping us identify for those credentials that they work with. We have a number of committees that credentials holders are eligible for. If you're ever interested in participating in the BGC processes and helping us make the whole programs better, because you know there's a lot of things that go on in developing these credentials, particularly when you're setting up or updating a credential, is making sure that it really reflects the practice that we're trying to provide the credentials for. And to do that, we need folks who are already engaged in the practice of the profession to make sure that we're really reflecting the things that are necessary and appropriate in those credentials. So letting the staff know there's places to do that, that you would like to get engaged and get involved. We just had our elections recently for the board of directors. I introduced those folks before, but each year we get nominations and we elect new board members. Every credential holder is eligible for that. Most of those come through self-nomination. So if you're shy about asking somebody to nominate you, you don't need to do that. You can just nominate yourself, and we go through a deliberative process to select those folks who will be on the board.
Alan, we do have one question that has just come in. So the question came with just a thank you for updating the BGC Code of Ethics to include other BGC credentials. And the individual was Kurt, noted that the website only shows ethics cases for CIHs and asked if there were other ethics cases for other certifications like the CPEA. So the answer is no, actually, there haven't. And I think there might be two reasons for that. Well, actually, the main reason is that the CIH is, we have many practitioners. And so they're more well known. So it's easier or more likely that you're going to get ethics cases called up against them when there's more of them around, just statistically speaking. So we have not had any ethics cases against other practitioners. I don't know if the QEP has had any cases prior to it becoming part of the BGC, but since it has become part of BGC, we haven't had any ethics cases for QEPs either. So we have only ethics cases against CIHs. And I should add also that just because there were ethics cases against CIHs is not that they're actually more unethical than any other practitioner. A lot of times the complaints come from disgruntled individuals. So for example, we get a lot of cases from other practitioners who are saying, oh, well, so-and-so is unethical because, and they're actually competitors in the marketplace. Other times we get complaints from people where a CIH might have been involved in some kind of a decision. So for example, a CIH might have been involved in some kind of home inspection, and the homeowners say, oh, I didn't like that decision, and so they complain and say this person is incompetent or has some ethical lapses. So the majority of the cases that we get are actually not considered to be viable. So we do review the cases. Because I'm not a practitioner, I make sure that we have CIHs or practitioners who have the credential, have them work with me to review the cases, and we have discussions about the validity of the complaints. And so far, the majority of the complaints have been dismissed or have been found to be not legitimate.
And I should add that we always have legal counsel involved in those because these are legal issues, and I'll add that the CIH, because it is dominant in the marketplace and is called out in some different provisions, even sometimes in regulatory or guidance documents, that it has an elevated level of importance in active decisions, so it can potentially lead to that disagreements that can occur when things are entered into commerce. It's one of those, it's not a good problem to have, but it's a recognition of the value of the CIH that people are very concerned when it's potentially misused.
Right. And actually, Kurt added another comment and just asked that we identify the other credentials just to show that that we do track them for ethics and that they have had no ethics cases.
And one of the reasons we updated, and that was something I was active in, at one point in my career, I was chief ethics officer for a corporation, and maintaining codes of ethics to reflect the practice of the profession has always been important to me. So I did work with that team to update those. And one of the key factors was all of the different credentials, or most of our credentials, had codes of ethics. They were very focused on the credentials that they were responsible for. But the new code is really very broad-based, and it hits the essentials. It's not dealing with any specific issue that happened in the past, which some of the old codes did. These kind of codes evolve over time, and sometimes they just reflect what the last problem was. What we tried to do with this most recent code is have a code that really would have a long life and reflected the general things that we thought were most important for the profession.
I think we're going to move to the next segment, which is to announce the recipient an annual fee waiver. So to be eligible, first you have to be in the forum right now. We've randomly pulled some names. So the person that we have pulled is Kurt Johnson. So Kurt Johnson, if you could go to the GoToWebinar control panel.
This is Kurt Johnson. I'm here.
Hi.
Hi,
Kurt.
I was uncertain how to turn that sort of stuff on.
Hey.
You know, I really appreciate this, but I'd suggest in my current role with my organization, I'd be as happy to donate this benefit to someone else who's maybe an independent practitioner.
Okay.
But I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Sure. Do you have anybody in mind? I mean, if you have somebody that you know that would be worthy, we could do that.
I'd be remiss in doing that, particularly having asked the ethics questions. I don't want to show favorability to one particular person over another.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, Kurt. So then we're going to go down the list to the next randomly selected person, and that is, thanks very much, Gavin. So we're going to try to open your mic. So is Gavin still on the line? Because you've been pulled for a free BGC fee waiver if you're credentialed by us.
I am. I will be retired status starting in 2023.
Okay. You could have one more year as a fully credentialed practitioner with a waiver. So would you like to accept it?
Sure.
Fantastic. I'd just like to turn this back over to Alan just for any closing comments.
So thank you again. Thank you for everyone who's participated. As you've seen with these virtual forums, these virtual activities are always interesting, and we've had our little glitches as we go along. We've learned a lot. Hopefully we won't have to use that learning as much in the future, although our intention is to continue to have a virtual component with all future forums so that we can get the widest range of participation. We will also be participating with a number of different groups at conferences where large members of our credentials holders are available. When we have the in-person industrial hygiene conference, hopefully next year, we will have some sort of session to gather the folks who are credential holders, and we'll try to do that with other professional associations where we have a large number of credential holders possible. Thanks to all of you who have participated today and all of you who view this online. It will be posted in the future. And thanks again for making this 2021 BGC Forum a success. Have a good afternoon.